conferences, they need to be right here.
Wait, say that again, I'm sorry.
Like this again.
What does that say?
Bench conferences. But then you
Oh.
put your laptop there.
When you're doing it, the mic right there.
Not that one. Yes. How do I know when this one's on or off? Is there a light? No, I understand. I talked over lunch. Anything then before we bring in the jury?
No, Your Honor.
We're missing one? Hopefully it wasn't associated with screeching. No, everybody's here? Bring them in, please. All right. Did everyone get a chance to get some lunch? And I see some blankets there. I understand there's temperature and a coat. So, all right. Did everyone follow the rule on not speaking with anyone, not doing any research during the lunch hours? And you didn't discuss it with each other or other persons. Is that correct? Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. All right. The state would call their next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Captain Angela Stallings.
Captain Stallings, please come forward for this sworn. can put your paperwork here if you like. That's no violation, right? Your affirm testimony given the court and jury in this case should be the truth, whole truth, nothing but true self to God.
Yes, ma'am.
Please have a seat on the stand. State your name, swear your life.
Angela Stallings, Stallings.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Captain Stallings, tell us who you work for and how long you've been there.
I work for the Colleton County Sheriff's Office and approximately at the Sheriff's Office 17 years.
All right, and what is your current position?
Currently, I'm captain over the administrative division.
And back in 2019, specifically January, what was your position at that time?
I was in investigations and also over dispatch in January of 2019.
All right, and were you on duty on January 17th of 2019?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Do you recall responding out to a call regarding Craig Lewis?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what sort of call were you dispatched to?
It was in reference to a burned victim that was at the hospital being flown out.
Where did you respond?
I responded to the residence, which is located in Colleton County at 273 Wade Hampton Avenue.
All right, and you stated that's within Colleton County's jurisdiction?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
All right. I'm going to show you a picture that's been marked as State's Exhibit 2 and ask if you can identify what is contained in this picture.
Yes, ma'am, I can.
What is it?
It's the front of 273 Wade Hampton Avenue.
And is that how it appeared on January 17th of 2019 when you responded?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
All right, thank you. State would move 2 into evidence at this time.
Any objection?
No objections from the
Thank
defense.
you. LB states two.
The series of exhibits, I've already approved them. I have no objection, Your Honor. She showed them.
To the package of photographs that's there, those are 1, 2 through what number?
2, 3, 4, and 5, the state would move into evidence at this time without objection.
All
No
right then.
objection.
Thank you.
2 through 5 inclusive. Thanks.
Can you guess which juice might help shrink your prostate and improve urinary flow? Is it 1. Beet juice, 2. Orange and ginger juice, 3. Grapefruit juice, or 4. Cranberry and lime juice? I'll share the answer with you in 30 seconds. Maintaining prostate health is crucial for men's overall wellness, especially as they age. Recent studies, including one from Fukushima University in Japan, have explored how certain juices might support prostate health by addressing issues like the prostate clog that can lead to benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH. This prostate clog refers to harmful buildup that can cause the prostate to enlarge, leading to symptoms like frequent urination, weak urinary flow, and disrupted sleep. Keeping your prostate in good condition is essential for comfortable urinary function and overall well-being. Many people believe that managing prostate health only involves medications or lifestyle changes. While these are important, exploring natural ways to support prostate health, such as incorporating specific juices into your diet, can also be beneficial. So, back to our question. Which one of these juices might...
All right, Captain Stallings, when you arrived at 273 Wade Hampton, what did you observe?
When I arrived, I was with 2 other investigators as we approached the rear of the residence. I had other investigators that were coming from the back door with Mr. Lewis walking towards his vehicle.
Okay. I'm going to show you what has been entered. Actually, I'm going to publish because these have been entered. Permission to publish.
You may.
Publishing states 2, and Captain, you stated this is the front of the residence.
Yes, ma'am, that's the front.
Publishing states 3, and if you can describe what we're looking at here.
Yes, ma'am, that's the rear of the residence. If you're on the back side of the house, it's going to be towards the left of the back side of the house.
Okay, so we have a carport here,
Correct.
and what is this vehicle?
It's a Toyota.
All right. And where was Craig Lewis when you got here?
He was under the carport from that back door walking towards his vehicle when I arrived.
Okay. And the published state score. What is this a picture of?
That's another angle of the carport area at the back of the house, just on the other side of the Toyota facing the one back door under the carport.
State side again.
The same angle, just the closer view.
All right, and is this the back door that you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
And the defendant was somewhere in between here?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, who responded with you?
When I responded, Detective Paget and Detective Marcarella, the three of us were together.
Who was already out there?
Detective Long and Detective Varnado.
After you arrived and when the defendant was heading to his car, what happened next?
He had gotten into his vehicle. Detective Long was asking him about a consent to search. He had the form and was asking him about it. The defendant had gotten into his vehicle and started becoming evasive with answering questions and was wanting to leave, and I told the defendant that at that time he was not going to be leaving the residence, and we were detaining him for evidentiary detention.
Okay. Was he ordered out of the car?
He was asked to get out of the vehicle. He did not want to exit, so at that point I reached into the vehicle and I removed the keys from the vehicle.
All right, and then what happened?
He did not exit the vehicle. As I was grabbing the keys, there was sort of a tussle, and at that point he was removed from the vehicle.
By you or other officers?
Myself and other officers.
Okay. Do you recall what other officers participated in removing him from the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. It was myself. It was Detective Long, Detective Varnado, Detective Eubanks, and I believe Detective Washington was there as well.
Okay. Was he eventually detained?
He was, yes, ma'am.
All right. And do you recall if medics came out to check him out?
They did.
After all that, what did you do next?
Myself and Detective Paget left the residence. We returned to the sheriff's office to obtain a search warrant for the residence. After completing the search warrant, we then responded to the jail and met with the on-call magistrate and got the search warrant signed for the residence. We then left the jail and went back to the residence with the search warrant.
All right, and you assisted in executing that search warrant?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you note where the placards were, or was that another officer?
That was another officer.
Okay, and who was that?
Detective Paget.
Thank you. And at this time, in January of 2019, did Colleton County Sheriff's Office have body cams or dash cams in investigators' cars?
No, ma'am, we did not.
All right. So is there any video that exists for this incident or anything to do with this search or the apprehension of Mr. Lewis?
Not at the residence, no, ma'am.
Okay. Were dash cams and body cams added later?
The only dash cam video that I'm aware of is one when the defendant was transported from the hospital.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that was, okay. So did Road Patrol have dash cams at this time?
Yes.
Okay. What I meant was, did CCSO approve dash cams and body cams for criminal investigations unit later.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Later on, I believe towards the end of March, body cams were issued to the investigations division.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. Beg the court's indulgence.
No objections to 19 through 25.
Inclusive, 19 through 25, or it'd be 19 through 25 inclusive, without objection.
Thank you. All right. Permission to publish? Thank you. Captain Stallings, I'm going to show you a series of pictures that have been entered. These are exhibits 19 through 25. If you can just describe what we're looking at in each. States 19.
That's the back door of the residence from the carport.
Miss Keeney. All right, so this is the back door that we saw through the carport. Is that right, Captain?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And that's showing into the residence.
Yes, ma'am.
This is States 20. What are we looking at here?
That's at the doorway looking into the living room area.
And I realize these are dark, but the jury will have them back in the jury room. States 21.
Another overview photo of the living room area.
Is this looking left or right from the front door?
That should be left.
And that's States 22. And then from the front door,
Well, from the back, the carport.
or I'm sorry, the carport.
To the right.
What is this right here?
The fireplace.
States 24.
Same area, just a little different angle that shows you more of the left side of the living room, and then the doorway straight ahead, leading into the kitchen.
This doorway.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that go back to the bedrooms or?
It should have gone to the bedrooms and the kitchen area.
States 25.
A close-up of the wood stove, fireplace, whichever you want to call it.
Thank you. Beg the court's indulgence. Please answer any questions Ms. Bright Matthews may have for you.
Yes, ma'am.
May it please the court. Ms. Stallings,
Yes, ma'am.
let's talk a little bit, if you would, about your law enforcement training. Where did you start out?
I started at the Walterboro Police Department.
And I believe when you were at the Walterboro Police Department, you worked as a road unit first?
No, ma'am. I started off as a dispatcher.
Okay, so you have a lot of experience as a dispatcher.
Yes, ma'am.
And then after you left, when did you leave Walterboro Police Department?
I started Walterboro Police Department in '98 as a dispatcher. I became Class 1 certified in '99. In 2001, I left the police department and went to the sheriff's office.
That's when Andy Strickland
no,
was elected,
ma'am.
or was it
That-
under George Malone?
That was under Allen Beach.
Allen Beach, okay.
Yes, ma'am. And then I was there under George Malone. The second term of his election, I was terminated at the pleasure of the sheriff. I then worked part-time in Cottageville to try to maintain my certification, because if you're out for a certain amount of time, you lose your certification. And then Walterboro Police offered me a position in community policing, so I went back to the police department. I was there a year and a half, I believe, and the solicitor's office approached me to be part of their investigations unit. So I went to work for the solicitor's office as an investigator for 5 years. And then went back to the sheriff's office. I was approached and asked to come back to the sheriff's office and oversee the dispatch center. And that was...
Under what sheriff?
Under Andy Strickland.
Okay.
I believe that was 2016, and I've been back at the sheriff's office since 2016. And the first time I was at the sheriff's office was from '01 to '08, the end of '08.
How much investigative experience, I always have problems with that word, investigative experience have you had?
I first went into investigations in 2003 under Jack Watson. He was a lieutenant over investigations. So I was in investigations from '03 to '08. When I was community policing at Walterboro for the year and a half, I assisted with some cases. And then the 5 years with the solicitor's office, so 5, 10, 12. When I went back to the sheriff's office, initially I was solely in dispatch. I occasionally would help if they had something major or specific crime that I had experience in. And then, let's see, I believe it's when Major Hayes retired, they made some movements and adjustments in positions, and I was back in investigations and dispatch.
Using your experience that you had while working as an investigator, and particularly with the solicitor's office, and since you told me you worked under Jack Watson, I know how he was. Would you agree with me if I said documenting your file thoroughly is important, as an important part of investigating?
It is.
Why is it important? They always tell us on Cross, never say why, but I know you.
Because you forget stuff.
And it's important for presentation
It
too,
is.
if you need to go to trial in a case.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's one of the things that they drill into your head at the academy, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you get recertified, they teach you new ways to document your files.
Yes, ma'am.
And tell me about, is it major? Were you the major over dispatch or captain over
No, I
dispatch?
initially was lieutenant, and then when Major Hayes retired, I then was promoted to captain between investigations and dispatch.
In that capacity with dispatch, what is the procedure, policy and procedure of the Sheriff's Department in maintaining dispatch recordings and logs?
So our CAD logs, we have indefinite from when our CAD system began.
Right.
We initially were on the AS400 system, and in 2019, we changed over to Central Square, which
Maybe I
was-
didn't say that question properly.
Okay.
What is the policy as it relates to how long you keep the CADs?
The CAD reports we have indefinite.
And what is the
And
CAD?
The CAD report is the call for service. Well, CAD is computer-aided dispatch. Within our system, we have different sections of it, but the computer-aided dispatch pertaining to CAD are the call for service logs, and we maintain those indefinite back to when we initiated the CAD system.
What is the sheriff's policy, was the sheriff's policy in 2019 as it relates to maintaining the recordings?
The recordings, we maintain those
By that, so I can explain it, the recording of when someone calls,
when someone calls, we maintain those for 3 years.
okay? And is there, do you maintain them and send them to the particular case if it's an arrest involved?
We do.
And was that done in this case?
It was not.
Was a transcription of what was reported maintained for this case?
Not a transcript, but the call for service has the notes that were taken from the caller.
And it's very cryptic, very short, isn't it?
It is.
Okay. There was a question that you were asked just a minute ago about, excuse me. You were asked about body cams.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you would explain for the jury, body cam is generally that camera that's in the middle of the chest of an officer, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Whereas
But-
a dash cam, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Road Patrol typically wears them.
No, I just wanted the
Yes, the
explanation of what it
body cam
is.
is what's worn on the officer.
You're getting ahead of me.
Yeah.
Okay, body cam is what they usually wear right here.
Correct.
The dash cam is a camera that's mounted in the front, usually on the dash, like it says.
Yes, ma'am.
On road patrol cars, right?
Correct.
Okay. Were there any road patrol units out of the 10 cars, 10 units that were there that day, on January 17th in 2019, were there any road patrol folks there?
I know initially there was not. I don't know if any, may I look at my notes?
Certainly.
It shows that Roy Blake was dispatched and initially went to the hospital.
Who is he?
He was a deputy. He was a road deputy.
Okay.
En route to the hospital, out at the hospital, and then en route to the scene at the scene.
Okay. What about Billy Tyndall?
I think at that time, I'm pretty sure Tyndall was in the warrants division. I can't
So he-
remember exactly at which point he transferred over to investigations. He's either warrants or investigations. I can't remember which at that time.
It looks like he was on the scene at 3:32, dispatched to the scene at 3:32, is that right? At scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do we have a dash cam from him?
No, ma'am. He wasn't part of the road division.
Okay. And let's go on. How many, if you would, since we're on that, how many people, give the jury the list of names that were there. Starting with yours, I think first is on your sheet.
Myself, Captain Chapman, Billy Tyndall.
What was his rank?
I'm sorry, Tyndall or
Tyndall.
Chapman? Tyndall.
You said Captain Chapman.
Yes, Captain Chapman. This has B713, so that's a Bravo unit. Bravo's is the warrants division. So without looking at personnel, I would say he would have still been in the warrants division at that time. I don't know what his rank was.
Okay. What about Kelly Paget?
Kelly Paget, she was an investigator. Jason Eubanks, investigator. Brian Varnado, investigator. Shauna Tozier, investigator. And David Long, lieutenant investigator. And Ed Marcarella, investigator. And then we went to the hospital.
What about George Rue?
He went to the hospital. He did not come to the residence.
Was he an investigator?
No, ma'am. He was supply lieutenant.
Would he have had a dash cam?
I don't know if he would have had dash cam in his vehicle or not.
Now, Andy Strickland, the sheriff at that time, was also on scene, but he's not listed on the CAD. That's the older CAD that you have. He's not listed there, is he?
He was at the hospital.
Okay, did he ever come to the scene?
Not to my knowledge, no,
Okay,
ma'am.
so of course he would not have a dash cam, nor would he have a body cam, right?
Correct.
But as sheriff, he issued the body-worn cameras policy for the department in 2015, didn't he? You were asked about it just a minute ago, and I just wanted to show you the document.
He probably, let's see, says issued / revised 2015. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Andy Strickland was the sheriff.
He
And in
was.
that first paragraph there, it says the purpose. Isn't it true that on that statement there that was provided to you, the availability of body-worn cameras enhances documentation of officers' public contacts, arrests, and critical incidents? Is that what the policy says?
Yes, ma'am.
But yet, you're telling this jury that of the 10 officers you've talked about, none of them wore body cam nor had dash cam in their car because it was either they weren't available or either because of their position as investigators, they didn't need to have them.
They weren't issued to investigations until March of 2019.
Is that what your sheriff at the time decided, or was it something that came up that all of the rank decided that they didn't want?
I don't know who made that decision. I know the investigators didn't have them.
Would you doubt it if anything came out that a lot of the investigators did not want to have body cams on them?
I would object to this conjecture.
I'll withdraw that, Your Honor. In the same report on page 2, it says the wearing of personally owned video recorders is not authorized. You could only wear what was issued. Is it your testimony here today that in 2015, this policy was presented, but yet no one was even afforded the ability to wear a body-worn camera?
I know our division was one of the divisions that did not have body cams.
Okay. And this was under Andy Strickland,
It was.
okay? Now, let's get to the actual investigation in this case. You get this call to come to the scene to investigate what you believe to be is an arson and a seriously injured person that was being medevaced to Atlanta, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when we talk about the rank of people on the scene, what rank were you compared to the others?
I was captain.
What does that mean? I know I should know what captain, lieutenant, what, does that put you first, second, or third of the people on the scene?
First,
Okay?
until Chapman arrived, and then he has more experience than I do, so then I would have fallen under him.
Okay, so when you arrived on the scene, I am looking at your report, and if you don't mind, look at it with me. The severity of what has gone on, you wrote, white male dropped victim off at the ER. Then you put some A32, 321, that's an officer's number. Advised suspect did not have a C9F on him last night during the whatever. Isn't that what you wrote? You wrote it in police jargon and not common sense. Or what?
This is the dispatch notes. I did not write this. This is from the dispatcher.
Where is your report?
I don't have a supplement for the CAD report.
Did
This
you?
is the CAD report.
Okay.
So this is information that the dispatchers would gather from calls or radio traffic.
So up top where it says CAD information, gives the case number, and then original report by Angela Stallings, is the jury to understand that you gave that information to the dispatch?
So where it says A321 advised
Yes.
suspect did have a
It's-
code 9
Mike,
box,
wait a
that
minute.
was from me.
So everything in here is what you told the dispatch?
No, that's not correct.
Okay, so this stuff in here is not what, but so, let me show you what the state's provided to me.
Oh, you're looking at the narrative. I'm looking at the CAD report. Sorry.
Doesn't that say CAD report up top?
So yes, this is the CAD report, yes.
And that CAD report was done with information you provided, wasn't it?
Part of it was.
So where would the other information have come from?
The caller calling in to dispatch to report the incident.
Okay? Why does it then say original report by Angela Stallings? I know I shouldn't ask that question either, but I have to.
So the way the old CAD system, the AS400 worked, when an incident report is generated from a CAD report, the whole top section is the CAD, the dispatch notes.
Okay.
And then some officers would keep that, would separate it, go into their narrative, and then of what the officer themselves did, and then you would have your supplements from your other officers.
Instead of using their independent observations?
I'm sorry, say that, I don't
They
think I
would
understood.
keep whatever the CAD report is instead of putting what their independent investigation says. Isn't that correct? Or adding to it?
No,
Their-
they,
Your Honor, objection, this witness can't testify to what other officers would do,
Your
what
Honor.
their practice was.
I did not elicit it. She provided the information. She said what some officers, I didn't ask what some officers. Once she said it, I asked her to explain what she meant. And I am on cross.
You can testify as to what you meant, but as to what other officers might have done, stay away from that if you would,
okay.
please.
So sometimes when the officers would initiate their narrative, they would leave the CAD notes,
Separate it and do their narrative themselves. This original narrative are the notes that copied over from the CAD report, and it says, as the officers went into their narratives, it says see supplements for the narratives from the officers.
So where's your supplement?
I don't have one.
You were at one point the highest and then the second highest person on the scene of this report.
Given your background with the solicitor's office and in law enforcement and investigations, you did not write a report?
I did not write a narrative, no, I did not.
Did you make independent notes?
No, ma'am.
When you came to the scene, you saw that Craig had already shut his back door, and two officers were already there walking behind him, and he was allowed to get in his car, didn't he?
He was walking to his vehicle, yes.
Did he get in the vehicle?
He did.
Did he crank the vehicle up?
I believe it was cranked.
Didn't you I don't know if uncrank is a word. Didn't you turn the key in the ignition and take the keys out?
I did.
And didn't you tell the boys, you're not going anywhere, arrest him?
No, ma'am, I did not tell the boys that
Okay.
he's not going anywhere, arrest him. I asked Mr. Lewis to step out of the vehicle. He did not. I told him that he was remaining at the residence. He was not leaving at that time. He did not want to comply.
You said it in that tone, I'm sure, right?
I don't recall what tone I was using. I was asking him to step out of the vehicle, and he wouldn't. So at that time, I reached into the vehicle. I turned the vehicle off and removed the keys so
Now,
he
Miss-
couldn't move.
Now, Mr.
move
Lewis
the
is a pretty
vehicle.
big man,
He is.
and he was in a Toyota,
He was.
and you reached in, over, and around him and got him out of the car. And that's when a scuffle ensued.
It is.
Because you attempted, along with the guys that were there, to drag him down to the concrete.
Only after he didn't comply.
Okay, how was he to comply? Drop on his face on the concrete?
No, step out of the vehicle when he was asked to.
Okay, so when Mr. Lewis did, you get him out of the vehicle, the guys, along with you, tried to get him on the concrete. He sidestepped to the grass so that he would not get hurt, didn't he?
I recall him not complying with us and not listening to our request, and he was being evasive and physically resistant with us.
Oh, he was physically. Did you get hurt?
I think I had a scratch on my hand.
Did David Long get hurt?
Yes, he had a cut to his hand.
And where was your cut?
I think it was on my hands.
Which hand?
I don't recall.
Was that documented anywhere?
Probably in our interdepartmental, as we did Eubanks's paperwork.
Didn't you say in the interdepartmental as well as Eubanks's paperwork that the defendant received a minor scratch, minor laceration, and there were 5 people that got hurt? Didn't you say that?
Yes, ma'am.
And no pictures of those scratch was ever entered into evidence, was it?
I don't believe I took a photo of my hand, no, ma'am.
Did you take a picture of David Long's bruise on the back of his fist?
I did not take one. I don't know if anyone else took any.
Now, Mr. Lewis is shown in the mugshot when he got to the jail as having dried blood draining down his face. Do you remember that?
He did have a small scratch to his
small?
face, and I think it had a Band-Aid on it. Once he got to the jail.
Ms. Stallings, I'm going to ask this, and I would really appreciate your candor, because I know you. Did you know at the time that Andy Strickland, when he sent y'all over there, that Leanne Kellum, Terry Lewis's daughter, was one of his tenants? Did you
Was
know
one
that?
of whose
Was one of
tenants?
the sheriff, your sheriff's tenants?
No,
Did you
ma'am,
know
I
that?
did not know that.
He didn't tell you that, did he?
No, ma'am.
He's the one who issued the be on the lookout and sent y'all over there to Craig's house, didn't he?
He was one of the ones, he did give the BOLO for a vehicle.
Be on the
description.
lookout.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know that he was in communication with Leanne Kellum when she was on her way to Atlanta?
I was not aware of that, no, ma'am.
Does the CAD log show that Andy Strickland went to the emergency room when Craig was there being tended to by the doctor?
I know that he was at the hospital when the initial call came out. Let's see. It shows him initially out at the hospital at 1519, and then he was en route with an escort.
Did you know that Craig Lewis and Leanne Kellum were all classmates with Andy Strickland, and they were all acquaintances? Did you know
No,
that?
ma'am, I did not know that.
I noticed that some officers were at the scene that are not listed on the CAD report. Wendell Butterfield, do you remember him being there?
No, ma'am, he was an investigator of ours.
So is Bill Smoke? I noticed him at the scene
He's
too.
one of our reserve officers.
And was he at the scene? Do you remember? If
I
not,
don't
that's
remember
fine.
him being there, no, ma'am.
No report from either of those two? No?
No, ma'am.
Explain for this jury how one would get a search warrant, meaning an officer such as yourself.
You have to have probable cause for a search warrant. You get the location of the area or location that needs to be searched. You document a description of the location that's to be searched. You submit what you're looking for based off of the type of crime, what probable cause you do have that at that time, and then you go and you seek it with a magistrate judge or a circuit court judge.
Do you have to swear that you're telling the truth?
Yes.
And in this particular case, you did not write a report, but you went and got a search warrant on the house that we've seen pictures of, based upon your sworn affidavit or sworn testimony to the magistrate.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you tell the magistrate after bringing the victim to the emergency room, the spouse left and did not stay with the patient? Didn't you say that in your affidavit?
Down at the bottom, in paragraph 3, subparagraph number 3, first sentence.
Yes, I did.
And then you said, officers responded to the residence of the patient and spouse. And then, isn't that correct? That's your next
Yes,
statement?
ma'am.
The next statement says, contact was made with the spouse at the residence.
Correct.
And I assume by that you mean the two officers that arrived first, or are you referring to yourself?
The initial officers.
And while attempting to determine the cause of fire and injury, the spouse was being very evasive, and you use very evasive, and would not answering questions. Is that your affidavit that you gave to the magistrate?
Yes, ma'am.
The spouse did state he had already removed the couch from the residence that was damaged during the fire. So he told them that much, right?
Correct.
The spouse was attempting to leave the residence and officers attempted to detain him. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But didn't Officer Long and Varnado tell him he could leave and you came and changed it?
I'm not sure what they told him.
You didn't read Mr. Lewis his rights before you reached in the vehicle to detain him, did you?
I did not, no ma'am.
Okay.
May I approach?
Did you want this back? This was yours.
Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it taken as a part of the investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would move this photograph into evidence.
What number?
What number? Teresa?
3?
4?
4? Okay.
4.
No objection to 4, is that correct?
No objection.
All right, that'll be 4 without objection. And it's 4.
I'm going to try to use this. If the clerk could assist. I don't know how to use this. Or I could do it the old, I'm not going to ask, I could do it the old-fashioned way. Your Honor, I move to publish to the jury.
You may.
Does defendant's exhibit number 4 accurately depict how Craig Lewis looked on the evening when you said that he had a little scratch?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Just briefly, Captain Stallings, are you aware of any stitches that Mr. Lewis may have received?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So you're not aware of any medical attention that he received before being released back to police custody?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Read cross. But you're aware that he got kicked in his ribs and had to go to the hospital for that. Not only on the 17th, but on the 18th too. The doctor testified earlier to him checking him out for ribs and back injuries he received, and you said it was minor.
I don't recall the injuries to the ribs. No, ma'am.
Nothing further.
I would ask that Captain Stallings be released at this time. No objection. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Captain. The state calls Brian Varnado.
Let's see. I get you to retrieve the other exhibits. You might just be able to reach over there. Thank you very much.
Mr. Varnado, please come forward and be sworn. Please come forward and place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right.
How you doing?
I'm fine. You affirm the testimony you give the court and jury in this case should be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please have a seat on the witness stand. State your name for the record and swear your license.
Sergeant Brian Varnado with the Colleton County Sheriff's Office. Is it? Okay. Last name spelled V-A-R-N-A-D-O-E.
I think it's on. That's all I said.
Doesn't sound like it's on. Okay, you can try it again, Sergeant.
I got a big mouth. You should be able to hear me. It's not working, is it?
All right, that
It is
sounds
now.
like it's on.
Yep. Last name spelled V-A-R-N-A-D-O-E.
Thank you, Sergeant Varnado. Who do you work for?
Colleton County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been employed with Colleton County Sheriff's Office?
Approximately 11 years.
All right, and what is your current position?
Investigations.
Was that your position in January of 2019?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you on duty on the 17th of January of 2019?
I was.
And were you dispatched to Wade Hampton Drive that day?
Yes, well, on the radio, one of my supervisors told me to go to that location, yes.
Okay. And that was Wade Hampton Drive?
Yes, Colleton County.
Okay. What did you observe when you got there?
I pulled up to that residence. I seen a vehicle in the yard, SUV, and Mr. Lewis was underneath the carport area, from what I recall.
What was he doing?
When I first pulled up, I just see him standing underneath there. I couldn't really tell exactly what he was doing. I just observed him underneath the carport area, moving around.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on now, but it's just not loud at all.
I know. If you could just speak up and
Okay.
enunciate a little, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to show you what has been entered as State's Exhibit 4. And ask if this is the residence, the carport, and the car that you saw at 273 Wade Hampton when you arrived.
Yes, it is.
And Mr. Lewis was standing in this carport?
Yes, he was in that area when I came up.
Okay. What did you do next?
Got out the car and spoke to him. Told him the reason I was there. And not long after that, I had a few other investigators pull up behind me, my supervisor, and they began speaking with him.
All right, and what reason did you give him that you were there?
I told him we was there in reference to his wife. An incident had occurred, and we were there to come to the scene of where the incident occurred at.
Okay. And the man you saw, you said Craig Lewis. Do you see that man in the courtroom today that you spoke to?
Yes.
All right, can you point him out for me?
Dark blue button-up shirt there,
All right, between
White
Ms.
male.
Bright Matthews?
next to Miss Matthews. Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. What happened after you and investigators initially spoke to Mr. Lewis?
I believe he wanted to leave the residence. He was speaking to my captain, Angela Stallings. He got in his vehicle and said he was leaving. She informed him he was detained and he was not free to leave. The incident had just freshly happened and we was trying to get a handle on what had occurred. He said he was leaving. After she told him he was under detention and he did not comply with getting out of his vehicle, she told him to step out the vehicle and that he could not leave. I believe she attempted to take his keys. I don't know if she actually ever got the keys or not at that time. And then he was placed to the ground and put in restraints.
Okay, so he had to be removed from the vehicle?
Yes.
All right, and were you involved in that removal?
Yes.
All right, were other officers involved with that?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And eventually, was he detained?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Do you recall anyone advising him of his Miranda rights?
I did not myself. I didn't ask him any questions, but one of the supervisors there probably notified him of his Miranda.
Okay, well, you don't have to guess. If you don't recall, that's okay.
No.
Sometime later in the investigation, did you receive information about a burned couch?
Objection. Leading. She can ask what he received, if he received any information. He can't lead.
Did you receive any information about anything?
I had left the residence, left the supervisors there. Some of the investigators stayed on scene. I got notified on the radio that I needed to check a particular area for a burned couch that was removed from that residence,
All right,
and where
and
that couch could possibly be located.
what area was that?
It's an area in Colleton County, Risher Mountain Road. It runs parallel with 95.
Did you respond out to Risher Mountain Road?
Yes, I responded out there.
I am moving to Interstates Exhibits 11 through 18, which the defense has no objection to.
No objection.
All right, thank you. That would be 11 through 18 inclusive without objection.
And just for the witness's edification, I'm going to have him flip through these pictures. Do you recognize these pictures, Sergeant?
Yes, ma'am.
And what are they?
These are photographs of the couch on the side of the road, Risher Mountain Road.
Okay. Is that a fair and accurate depiction of how it appeared?
Yes,
And then once it's back in evidence?
yes.
Okay. And I'm going to publish these, Your Honor, and then I'll go through and just have Sergeant Barnadoe describe what we're seeing, if that suits the court.
No objection, I presume?
Takes a minute longer. I'm going to first publish State's Exhibit 11. And Sergeant, can you just describe what's contained in this picture?
That's the couch as it set on Risher Mountain, on the side of the road, on Risher Mountain Road when I found it. That's how it was laying.
All right, State's Exhibit 12.
That's another angle, same couch.
State's Exhibit 13.
That's some of the, lack of a better term, stuffing, I guess, out of the couch.
State's 14.
Oh, that's a photograph of a cigarette lighter that was lying beside the couch.
Was this couch and the cigarette lighter collected?
Yes,
And was that all taken back to evidence at the Criminal Investigations Division?
yes, the couch was taken back, I believe, to our bay. We have an open bay in there, and it was placed inside there.
All right, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 15. And ask what's in that picture.
Yeah, you can see the concrete floor there. It looks like that's the floor of the bay.
Okay, so that's when it's back in evidence.
Yes,
All right. Again, State's Exhibit 16.
same, just a different angle.
17.
That's the same, different view.
All right. Could you tell where most of the burns were, on the left or right side of the couch when you're facing it?
You're facing it, most of them are on the left side.
And then State 18.
Yes, that's the cigarette lighter that was on the ground beside it.
Thank you. Did you have any other involvement in the investigation of this case?
No.
All right, thank you. Please answer any questions Ms. Bright Matthews may have for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Murdoch is going to be crossing.
Good afternoon, Mr. Barnardo.
How you do, sir?
I'm doing well. Could you please state your rank and position from 2019?
2019, I was a sergeant in investigations.
And at the time of this incident, you were a sergeant?
Yes.
And you were also a part of the crime scene investigations unit, that's correct?
Yes, sir. We're a small agency. The CID is.
Did you know Mr. Lewis prior to this incident in 2019?
Yes.
Could you tell me how you know Mr. Lewis?
How long?
How long have you known Mr. Lewis?
Pretty much all my life.
Did you grow up with Mr. Lewis?
Mm-hmm.
You and Mr. Lewis went to school together?
Yes.
So you were friends growing up?
Yeah, we was friends. I knew him in school.
What did you review today, or prior to court coming to court today, in preparation to testify?
What I had to testify to.
And this incident occurred back on January the 17th of 2019, correct?
Yes.
And your testimony here today is what you recall from 4 years ago?
Yes.
Let's go to your report. Was there any type of incident report you did in regards to this incident?
No, all of my interactions or whatever are recorded on CAD, on the call for service.
Recorded in the CAD service?
In the dispatch info, yes.
And you wrote an incident report, and you never wrote an incident report or any type of...
I wasn't a case officer on this, no.
Notes from this incident?
Your Honor, if he can let the witness finish before he keeps asking questions.
Your Honor, the question wasn't finished before witness began to
Hold
answer.
on 1 second till he finishes, and then pause a second, and then you may answer. So,
Sorry, Mr. Barlow.
No, you good?
So you never wrote any type of investigative report, any kind of notes, or an incident report regarding the incident that occurred at Hampton Avenue, Wade Hampton Avenue?
No, I had no investigation, or as far as the investigative at that location, no, I didn't. I didn't have any part of that.
So upon your arrival to the scene, you were the first officer that arrived to the scene?
Yeah, I was there probably 2 minutes before the other ones got there.
2 minutes?
Yeah, it was a matter of minutes.
Upon your arrival, did you or any of the other officers speak to anyone else other than Mr. Lewis?
I don't remember seeing nobody else there but Mr. Lewis when I got there.
After other officers arrived, do you recall any other officers speaking to a neighbor or anyone else that could have?
They may have.
Anything?
I didn't.
And that would have been documented in a report?
If they spoke to him, you had to ask them.
Isn't one of the first things an officer does arriving on scene, investigating a crime, would be to search for other witnesses or any type of surveillance footage or anything that can help the investigation?
That's some of the things we do, yeah.
And why do you do that?
To gather evidence.
But you personally never spoke to anyone else?
I don't recall speaking to a neighbor, no.
Do you remember when you made contact with the defendant? Were you by yourself?
It was a matter of minutes. I may have been there a minute or two, just he and I. And
do you
then,
remember Mr. Long was
yes,
also there?
I believe he was one of the first ones. My first in
So it's
chain
safe
of
to say that you and Mr. Long...
1 second, let him finish the answer if you would before you ask him.
my chain of command. He's my next in line supervisor, and he pulled in right behind me. Yes.
So it's safe to say that you and Mr. Long together made contact with the defendant on the
From what I remember, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you, upon making contact with the defendant, did you search the defendant, pat down or anything?
No, when I got there, it wasn't very long before the rest of them got there. I pretty much was just telling Mr. Lewis why we were there.
Do you recall anyone?
I didn't
Mr.
ask
Long?
him any questions or anything.
Do you recall Mr. Long or any other officer patting down Mr. Lewis?
I don't.
Searching Mr. Lewis?
No, I don't.
So you had no reason to believe Mr. Lewis was dangerous, or
At the time, no.
did you ask the defendant, Mr. Lewis, what was going on when you arrived?
I told him why we were there. I didn't get into a whole lot of asking the questions. I left that from Ms. Stallings and the rest of them.
And did Mr. Lewis say anything to you when you asked him about what was going on?
No, he didn't have it wasn't nothing dire to the situation. He was just, telling me, hey, she's messed up or whatever. It was just general conversation.
So there were some statements made between you and Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, we just had a general meeting. Like I said, it was like maybe a minute before everybody else got there.
Did Mr. Lewis tell you where he was going?
No.
Did you and Detective Long, I'm assuming he was detective at the time?
Yes.
Did you and Detective Long enter Mr. Lewis's residence before any other officers arrived on scene?
And the other, no, there was some other ones there by the time the sweep was done at the house.
So are you familiar with Detective Paget? Was Detective Paget also on the scene that day?
I think she came up behind us too also, yes. There was a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a document here. This is Now, Mr. Varner, do you recognize that document? Have you ever seen it before?
I don't know if I've seen this document. I know what it is, and I can see who typed it.
Does that document appear to be a report from Ms. Paget?
Yes,
Detective Paget from
Detective
this
Kelly
day?
Paget with us, yes.
Could you flip to the second page of that?
Mm-hmm.
About midway through that top paragraph up there, does Detective Paget observe you and Detective Long exiting the residence with the defendant upon her arrival at the scene?
Point out which part. You said halfway through the second paragraph?
Yes. Your Honor, if I may.
Yeah, come on up here and show them what you're talking about. I'll read it. Lieutenant Long and others exited the residence with Mr. Lewis. As Lewis was walking, he was holding a flip phone and was saying something to the effect of, "I'm going to call the person who got the couch now."
That's enough.
You want to keep reading?
That's enough. So you and Detective Long were the first two on scene.
Mm-hmm.
Detective Paget and others arrived minutes later.
Yeah, right behind us.
And her report states that you and Detective Long exited the residence.
Well, we probably were, like I said, we probably did do a sweep of the house. I'm not sure.
So you were in the residence.
I said we did a sweep of the house. One was done.
On that date in 2019, were you equipped with any type of body camera or dash camera at
No.
this time? Why not?
My agency didn't have them.
You just didn't have them?
My agency didn't have them.
Agency
We
didn't
weren't
have
issued, yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
You good?
So you had no access to one at all?
No.
But if you did have a body camera on scene when you responded, any statements that were made between you and Mr. Lewis upon your arrival would have been recorded on that body
That's
camera?
policy, yes.
Let's get back to the couch that you mentioned. You responded after the call, or you left the scene from the original call and responded to Richard Mountain Road in response to a couch, correct?
Yes.
And upon your arrival, the couch was located?
Yes, I found on the side of the
Richard
road.
Mountain Road?
About half a mile down Richard Mountain.
Did Mr. Lewis assist in finding the couch?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Do
I
you
was
recall any other
calling.
officers calling, or anyone on the dispatch call that stated Mr. Lewis assisted in helping find the couch?
From what I recall on the radio, I was told to respond out there by an officer. I think his name was Phil Driggers. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was Driggers. I don't know how Mr. Driggers got that information.
But somebody did give information to you regarding the couch
On the
that was
radio,
found on
yes.
Richard Mountain Road?
Mhm.
Approximately how long were you on the scene at Wadeham before you left to Richard Mountain Road?
It was after the ambulances, both of them had left. 30 minutes maybe. Wasn't very long. It should be in the
Do you recall if the fire department was ever called in any part of this investigation?
I don't remember the fire department, no.
And when you arrived at the home and Mr. Lewis advised you of fire, that's correct?
There had been one,
Of
yes.
fire, that's correct?
There had been one, yes.
And you didn't think to call any type of fire dispatch to make sure that the residence was safe?
I didn't see any flames, smoke, or anything. Like I said, we did a sweep of the house.
What did you see on under the carport?
I seen water on the carport, on the ground, a water hose, some black char of some type that was burnt material on the
So
carport.
it's safe to say that it was consistent with something that looked like it had just out of the fire.
Had been, yes.
So were you in part of, or did you take part in helping to detain Mr. Lewis, or did that occur after you left the scene at Wadeham?
Nope, I was there.
Do you remember approximately how Mr. Lewis was detained?
Yes,
Could you explain that to the jury?
he was pulled out the vehicle.
And when did Mr. Lewis get into his vehicle?
I believe while my captain may have been talking to him, he was walking towards his, the pictures.
Well, according
Has
to
it-
Detective Paget, you and Mr. Long exited the home with Mr. Lewis. Was it at that point where he got into his vehicle?
Yeah, after he walked away from there, yes. He wasn't in restraints
He
or
wasn't
anything.
detained at that point?
No, well, he was detained, but we didn't have him in handcuffs. We just told him he needed to stay there.
Typically, when you detain someone, are they placed into handcuffs?
Y'all do me a second.
Yes, sir.
It's difficult for a court reporter. You continue to talk over one another.
Sorry, Your
I
Honor.
apologize.
So that's okay,
Your Honor.
that's all right, it's fine, but just give it a second before the answer, and if you give them a second to finish, it might go a little smoother. Thank
sir.
you so much. Sorry for the interruption. Please ask the question again.
Typically, when you detain someone, are they placed in handcuffs?
Not all the time.
In situations where allegations such as allegations with Mr. Lewis, are suspects typically placed in the handcuffs?
No. Now, if he's not being aggressive, I don't.
Did you assist in the takedown of Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Approximately how many officers were involved in that takedown?
Maybe 4.
Were you injured as a result of Mr. Lewis?
I wasn't.
takedown?
No.
Were other officers injured?
Yes.
Did you have any reason to believe that a fire didn't occur at the residence upon your arrival?
It appeared so. I'm not an expert in that area, but there were, like I said, there was some charred remains of fabric or something. The water hose out there, the water on the pavement. You can smell the slight smell of smoke. I mean, at some point you can tell there had been a fire.
But the fire department was never called.
Not that I'm aware of. I didn't see them.
Is it common for responding to accidents, fire department be called?
If we think they're needed, yes.
Well, even in small car accidents, fire department's usually called, correct?
Yes, sir. Actually there was never a 911 call to come out there to that location.
So certainly where there's a call that comes in regarding a fire, it'd be a good idea to call the fire department.
If someone called 911 and said, yes, there's a fire out here or something, then yes, the fire department would have came.
As part of your training as an officer, are you ever taught anything regarding other than basic fire safety?
No,
Would you be familiar with an expert cause and origin expert with fire?
You have to repeat that for me.
Would you be familiar with a cause and origin expert when it comes to fire?
No.
Beg for the court's indulgence, Your Honor. Mr. Barnard, were there 3 dogs that were located in the residence upon your arrival?
I don't recall dogs. I'm not saying they weren't there, but I don't remember them.
Craig let you and Detective Long into the residence, and you eventually went into the residence with Mr. Lewis, correct?
I don't know how far I went into the residence. I only remember passing right there in the doorway. As far as like going through and looking for dogs, I don't remember seeing any dogs.
Did you tell Mr. Lewis that he could leave upon exiting the residence?
Outside of the house? Yeah,
Yes.
he was able to go into the yard. Yes, he couldn't leave the premise. No, he didn't have to stay inside the house. I actually wanted to come outside the house.
And do you recall Mr. Lewis locking the door to his residence when he exited the house?
Say again?
Do you recall Mr. Lewis locking the door to his residence when he exited?
I know he shut the door. I don't know if he locked it or not. It was shut.
Do you remember which investigator this case was assigned to as the lead investigator?
I do not.
Just to be clear, you never took any notes or wrote any kind of formal report
No.
as a result of this? No further question, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. Taylor?
Just briefly. If 911 is not called in an emergency, does the fire department just show up?
No. And if they're not called, no.
And why didn't you call the fire department?
I didn't see any fire or no smoke or anything. Didn't see a need for them.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions related to that question?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you so much. This witness excused or not?
No objection. Thank
Thank you so much.
State calls Lieutenant David Long. Thanks.
Mr. Long, please come forward and be sworn. Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right. You affirm the testimony give the court and jury in this case should be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please have a seat on the witness stand. State your name for the record. Spell your last name.
David Long, L-O-N-G.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Long.
Good morning.
Do you have your report with you?
Say again, please?
Do you have your report with you?
I do.
Okay. I've got one if you needed a copy of it. Lieutenant, tell us how long you've been employed by Colleton County Sheriff's Office.
I started in 1986, and then from 86 to 96, I worked for the Colleton County Sheriff's Department. Then I went to the Department of Natural Resources for South Carolina, and I worked there for about 17 years there, and came back to work at the Colleton County Sheriff's Department in probably 2013 or so, and been there ever since.
All right. And your current position is lieutenant over
Investigations.
investigations, right? And so back in 2019, what role were you playing at the sheriff's office?
The same, and special operations.
Were you on duty on January 17th of 2019?
Yes.
And where did you respond out to?
Wade Hampton Drive,
Whose residence was that?
Craig Lewis's.
All right. Was that a shared residence?
Was there what?
Shared residence?
I believe he was married and had a wife at the time.
All right. Is that within Colleton County's jurisdiction?
It is.
Okay. Tell us what you observed upon getting to that residence.
Myself and Detective Varnado arrived at about the same time. He actually knows Mr. Lewis, and he began speaking to him. And as we drove up, as we exited our vehicles and he started talking to him, he was under his carport with a water hose. I believe he was winding it up.
Okay.
As he had just finished with it.
Do you see Craig Lewis in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
And where is he seated?
He's sitting beside the defendant's attorney.
Okay. Is that the same man that you saw in the carport winding up the hose?
It is. He has lost some weight since then.
Okay.
appears to have.
Okay. I have State's Exhibits 9 and 10 that I've shown to the defense, and I would like to enter these. I believe there's no objection.
All right, those will be states 9 and 10 without objection.
Thank you, and may I approach the witness? Lieutenant Long, do you recognize what's contained in these pictures? This is States 9 and 10.
Yes, this is the carport that he was standing under with apparently the same garden hose and had just finished washing down. That's why the water is still there and some running down. This is the part that is not seen in that same photo of the left-hand side of the carport.
Okay, an extension of the carport?
It is.
Okay. Is that how it appeared when you responded to 273 Wade Hampton?
The door was open.
Okay. I'm going to publish these, Your Honor.
You may.
All right, Lieutenant, if I can direct your attention to the pictures that I'm putting up. This is States 9. And just describe for us what we're seeing right here again.
Yes, it was more water on the concrete at the time when I arrived.
Okay, and this
I'm not
is,
sure what time that picture was actually taken.
and this is the water hose you were referring to?
It is.
And you stated earlier that this door was open when you arrived?
While he was standing under the carport, that door to that entrance to that room was open.
This is States 10. And I believe you stated that this is just the other side of the carport?
It is. It appears to be what I would consider a two-car carport, and that would be the left side of the carport.
Thank you. All right, so you and Varnado were the first to get there, right?
Correct.
Okay. What happened after Sergeant Varnado had a brief conversation with Craig Lewis?
It was imperative that we were going to attempt to search the residence. I asked Mr. Lewis if he would consent to a search, and I don't know what he had said something. I don't remember or recall exactly what it was, but I had gone to my patrol vehicle and gotten a consent search form, and when I came back and asked Mr. Lewis about it again, apparently he refused to because I never got it signed. I don't remember whether he said he would or wouldn't or anything, but I did not get it signed, the consent.
Okay. At some point, did you Mirandize him?
After he was placed in handcuffs for detention, yes.
Okay. So prior to that, when you came back with the form, what happened next? What did you observe?
More officers had arrived at that time, and I believe Captain Stallings was speaking to him in the door of the truck. He had come out of the house, shut the door behind him, got in the truck, and a conversation was taking place with him sitting in the truck, and we were outside the vehicle.
Was he, what were you asking him to do?
I, at that point, wasn't asking him to do anything. He and Stallings were in a conversation. I don't know what they were saying or what had taken place, but at one point he was told he was detained for questioning and to exit the vehicle, and that's when he was trying to crank the vehicle and leave.
Okay. Did he exit the vehicle of his own volition?
No.
All right. Then what happened?
Captain Stallings attempted to get the keys. She was removed from that window of the vehicle. We got Mr. Lewis out of the vehicle. He struggled slightly, so we went to the ground with him and placed him in handcuffs.
Okay.
A struggle ensued.
Okay. And so you and what other officers?
At that time, it was myself, Officer Eubanks, and Detective Varno.
Okay.
And Captain Stallings was there present.
Were medics called to check him out?
Yes.
Was there another medic that came out too?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know that Detective Eubanks required a medic
Okay.
for an issue with his shoulder of some type.
Did you respond anywhere else later that day?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Did you have any other role in the investigation of this case?
Stayed at the house and stayed outside and made sure and secured the scene while the search warrant was executed.
And who came back with the search warrant?
I don't remember which officer had it.
All right. But you stayed at the residence and waited on the search warrant?
Yes, I was in the yard.
Okay. Please answer any questions Ms. Bright Matthews may have.
Absolutely.
What's your rank? What is your rank?
Lieutenant,
And how long have you been with the Sheriff's Department?
the first time was in 1986 until I went to work for DNR in 96.
So that's 10
retired-
years? 10 years, right?
10 years. Retired from DNR in 2012, June. Went back to work at the Sheriff's Office in 12 of June.
And so from
June
12,
2012.
at this time, so that's 10 years, plus you have from 12 to now.
38 now.
Okay, so you've been there a long time,
Yes, ma'am.
and you understand the importance of documenting everything,
Yes.
so that because you know when you come to court, you're gonna have somebody like me or
Absolutely.
Mr. Murdoch, and you and I have been at it a lot
Yes,
over the
ma'am.
years, and we have fun with it, don't we?
ma'am, we do.
All right. Which one of you gave the Miranda warnings?
After we placed him in handcuffs, I gave him a Miranda warning.
Isn't it in fact true that your own report says that when you, upon locating Lewis, he was under the carport with a water hose attempting to remove evidence? So was the water hose on or off?
He was under the carport holding the hose. I remember him stopping with the hose. I don't remember whether he was actually spraying or what at the time.
It says attempting to remove evidence of the fire that severely burned his wife.
That's correct.
You don't know what it was, do
The
you?
very second I drove up, I'm not absolutely sure if he had completed what he was doing or whether he was still in the process of doing it.
Well, David, excuse me for calling you David.
That's fine.
You went into the scene. Did you know Mr. Lewis?
No, I did not.
Or Brian just told you, I know Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Okay, so he went in there and didn't he say, hey, Bo, why didn't you call us? Isn't that what Brian said? When Brian went into the residence with Mr. Lewis, because he let y'all in the house, didn't he?
The door was open, and when he went in, I believe we followed him
And
in.
he didn't stop you?
No.
He didn't say, hey, you got a warrant, you can't come in my house, did he?
Well, I went into the doorway. I don't know
He
what
was
took place after
cooperating.
that. Ma'am?
I'm sorry, I'm doing what my protege was doing. He was cooperating, wasn't he?
He was.
And he came in, and I think that's when you or either Mr. Bryan said, hey, you noticed that the couch was missing, didn't you?
I myself?
Yeah, because you walk in that, under the carport, you walk into that area, that's where the wood-burning stove is, and you see that there's a couch missing.
Yeah, once you go in that doorway I said that was open, that's the room that also had water in it and smelled of fire, and the couch was missing, yes.
So now, yes, you noticed that the couch was missing, or no? Or that you found that later? I'm just trying to clarify it for the, did you?
I didn't know a couch was there until later. All I know is that the water was on the floor, and you could smell some odor of fire,
Okay.
and I stopped at that room. I didn't go any further.
You
I don't
didn't-
know what took place.
I'm not asking about anything related to the search. I'm just asking whether or not he was cooperating at that point.
He was cooperating at that point.
Okay. Didn't he say, when he was asked, hey, Bo, why didn't you call us? Didn't he say, why I'm gonna call y'all? I was trying to get my wife to the hospital. Didn't he say that to you all?
Not to me.
That's not reflected in this report, is it?
I did not hear him say that.
Okay, got it. Now, the next thing in your report, he goes out. is it your testimony to this court that when he shut the door, you didn't know whether it was locked or not, that y'all had already been in the house and y'all let him come outside, and you, even though you don't know whether anybody told him he could go, but he got in the car and he turned on the ignition switch, didn't he?
He was sitting in the truck. I do not remember him cranking the truck.
Was his seatbelt on?
I don't remember that.
You don't have that in your report either, do you?
No, ma'am.
And
I
then you
I didn't observe him with a seatbelt on. I would have written that.
Okay. Did you have your cell phone on you?
He did have a cell phone.
Did you have your cell phone on you?
Did I have mine?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can you take a picture of him?
Of who?
Mr. Lewis.
I don't recall. I did have a cell phone. I had two, matter of fact.
After I'll get to that in a minute. When you write in your report that Mr. Lewis was attempting to leave the residence, you had not detained him, had you?
When Stallings got there, she told him he was wanted for questioning. We were going to question him. At that point, he was detained.
I'm sorry. I was not talking about Stallings. I'm talking about your report. When you wrote in your report that he was attempting to leave the residence, you were there before Stallings, Marcarella, and I forgot the other name of Kelly Pageant came. You were there. He was not attempting to flee you and Brian Varnado, was he?
At that time, no, ma'am.
Okay. So he wasn't attempting to evade you. Stallings came and Stallings took control because she had more what? Seniority. She was the captain.
Correct.
And she said, no, he's not going anywhere because y'all had already told him he could leave, didn't you?
I didn't tell him he could leave.
Okay. You knew
Someone else may have.
You knew he wanted to get to the hospital to his wife, didn't you?
No, ma'am, I did not know that.
Okay. But you knew it was about a burning involving his wife, didn't it?
Correct.
Okay. Now let's get to the takedown. When he said who was it that gave the command to arrest him? And you're not going anywhere.
To detain him, yes.
Okay, now you made it was a nice, I listened to you carefully. A struggle ensued. What does that mean, a fight? We're in Walterboro. What does a struggle ensued means? Means y'all had to take him down.
We attempted to remove him from the vehicle and he was resisting.
Okay, how many times did you tell him to get out of the vehicle? That's not in the report either.
I didn't count them.
Did you tell him 5 times?
I didn't count them.
1 time?
I told him at least once, I know.
You did. And where were you standing when you told him that?
Right outside the door of the vehicle.
Who else was there?
Detective Varnado and Detective Eubanks, to my memory.
Okay.
Captain Stallings had just stepped to the side. She was there also.
3 people came with her, right?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you talk to any officers today about this case?
Did I what?
Talk to any officers today about this case?
I reviewed my notes.
Did you review their notes?
I don't have their notes.
You don't have their
review
notes in case
no.
file? Okay. I'm a little curious. You have in your report that you Mirandized Mr. Lewis, but you were not the lead officer on scene. So why did you Mirandize him?
Because I had just placed him in handcuffs.
Okay. You're the one that finally got the handcuffs on him?
It was a collective effort.
Craig never swinged at you, did he?
I don't remember him swinging at me.
Did he kick at you?
I don't recall.
When you got him out of the car, was he on the concrete? Was the vehicle on the concrete?
The vehicle was parked.
In the carport?
No, it was not in the carport. It was back from the carport.
Was it on concrete?
I don't remember whether that part is concrete or not.
Well, your attorney just, hold on, where is it?
She showed me a picture of the carport. Underneath there is concrete. I don't remember, the truck was not under there. It was parked outside of that.
May I approach the witness? You may. I'm going to show you what the state has put in as State's Exhibit Number 4. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes, ma'am.
And where's the truck located?
It is in a driveway on the concrete.
That's what I was asking. So, and In your attempt to bring Mr. Lewis down, didn't you try to slam him on the concrete?
No, ma'am, he ended up in the grass right over here where we pulled, we were all standing up, and we fell all into the grass right here. Nobody tried to slam him on any concrete.
Didn't you try to make him go down on the concrete, and y'all were hanging on to him as he sidestepped to the grass so that he wouldn't get hurt?
That would be accurate.
Okay. Are you right-handed? Do you write with your right hand?
I do.
And where was the scar or the laceration or the bruise that you received?
On my right hand,
And where on your right hand?
the back side.
Show it to the jury, please. Did you get that when you swung at him?
No.
On the back of your hand, he never swung at you, he never kicked you. You're taking him down with 4 other officers, and 4 supposedly got hurt. And you tried to swing at him, and then he turned his head and your hand hit the root that was down there, didn't it?
I don't know whether my hand hit the handcuff or something on the ground. I had a slight injury on the back of my hand.
Didn't Craig tell you and Brian Vonnerdo that he used the hose earlier to make sure the couch did not reignite?
I don't remember him saying that.
Okay.
He may have said it to someone else.
No, I'm asking just you,
He
you
did
and
not say
Brian.
that to me that I recall.
How many kicks did you get into Craig's back and ribs?
None.
You're under oath. Did you kick Craig Lewis 3
don't-
times in his ribs and his back?
No, ma'am, I do not recall kicking or striking Mr. Lewis.
I don't have any other questions.
Anything else, Ms. Lee?
No, Your Honor. May Lieutenant Long be excused, please.
Any objection?
No objections.
You need this exhibit.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. May we approach?
Yes. About ready for a break, so we'll try to keep it to 15 minutes. I understand that restrooms are limited in the jury room, so I'm told 15 minutes is a time period that y'all should be able to work with, but don't discuss the case with anyone, standard admonitions, each other, anything like that, and we'll try to make it back if reasonable in 15 minutes. So, thank you so much. I think they're gone. Anything in for the record before we take a break?
Nothing, Your Honor. I would like to pass up a case that will be in reference to the any presentations made by the pathologist. It is the state, Smith versus Arizona, recently ruled on this year by our U.S. Supreme Court. It's in reference to opinion testimony.
What's the summary, since it looks quite voluminous?
Experts
Thank you.
It relates to the pathologist or an expert witness utilizing the findings of another expert without the defense having the ability to cross-examine that other. I have the little expert, my cheat sheet.
Oh, good. Thank you. Ms. Watson, you familiar with the case?
No, Your Honor, but Dr. Beaver's autopsy report was based on just the autopsy that he performed, not on other experts' opinions or records.
I want to make sure that Dr. Beaver is not being called to testify on cause of death. He has the cause of death listed as homicide, and he relies upon the coroner's report, and the coroner, and when I subpoenaed the coroner's file, the coroner never even looked at Colleton medical records. And all the coroner has in his notes is, it looks like an asterisk related to the decedent's daughter and nothing else.
Well, I suppose both of these questions can be answered in maybe the first couple of questions to him.
Exactly.
Number one, are you relying on anyone else's medical opinion to reach your opinion? My understanding is the answer, at least the belief of the state is, the answer will be nope.
Just my own autopsy.
Right. Now, pathologists routinely rely on historical facts from law enforcement that play into the cause of death, but that is routine, and homicide just means at the hands of another person, and that information, Ms. Bright Matthews can certainly get into that with the pathologist, that he doesn't have any first-hand knowledge of what occurred that day.
Right.
But
Well, that was the
based
second
on-
question. But okay. But the first question, though, is probably resolved by perhaps even your first question to him about whether or not he relied on other doctors.
Sure.
Okay. So the second question, of course, is where'd you come up with this?
Right.
Well, I put together a whole lot of different things. And then,
I'd like to show you the first page, it's just two sentences
okay, I'm looking at it.
of case history. As long as he does not get into the case history, I'm good.
Now, the case history, let's be clear on if we can agree on what the case history is that you're talking about.
The case history contains the proof of poisonous tree. You've already ruled on that as it relates to
Statements that were provided out on, I think 5 months before Miss Lewis died.
It actually does not contain any statements by her. I know Your Honor is reading it currently.
According to the coroner, let's see, Barnes. This could be resolved, I would think.
I'm not asking him about that.
Okay.
As long as she is not going to be asking him what the case history is?
No.
Okay.
All right.
And because it is, I think that's reversible.
What about manner of death?
I will be asking manner of death. I'm not going to say where'd you get that from. If Ms. Bright Matthews wants to go into it, she certainly can.
Your Honor, this is a tissue doctor. A pathologist is simply a tissue doctor. He's not an expert witness in how a person dies. He can only say what they died with.
Yeah, it would be difficult, I would think, for him to come up with manner of death without the case history.
Therein lies the problem with that hearsay on hearsay.
Well, cause of death, I think, is
He can
fair game.
testify to cause of death.
Yeah, delayed complications of thermal injury, but manner of death, doesn't that rely on the case history to come up with that one
Well,
word?
it always does in every case, Your Honor. Whether something's a suicide or a homicide, it relies on some case history referred to by law enforcement. I've never had a pathologist who is not allowed to testify as to cause of death and manner of death.
Your Honor, never is a long time.
Well,
I've never had a pathologist be qualified to testify to manner, nor have they been able to testify. They can, if you say you committed suicide by shooting yourself in the head, the cause of death is going to be something with your brain. He can't say whether or not you did it to yourself.
The problem I guess I've got with manner of death is, the first question is going to be, how'd you come up with manner of death?
If Ms. Bright Matthews asked that.
No, I understand.
I'm not going to ask it.
But I mean, you were going to ask manner of death, I think, right? And then,
That's typically what I close on, because it is an opinion that he's entitled to give.
but his opinion would be based on case history, not on everything that he analyzed with the autopsy, right?
And they are, experts are allowed to rely on hearsay in forming their expert opinion under the rules of criminal procedure.
Your Honor, we've already gone over this as it relates to the only way that statement would have come in is if the statement from May of 2019, when the decedent was recorded, and we've already had a motion heard that statement was not coming in because it's hearsay. That's when that recitation that comes from that statement is word for word. And the coroner's file I have here, it specifically says, goes to that particular statement from Georgia Bureau of Investigations, where that's the first time in 5 months that someone talks about a shirt being thrown at the decedent. And in that statement, it also says that her boyfriend threw the shirt at her.
Well, I think we agreed that was not going to come in.
So how do you get it in now if it's hearsay the first time?
No. I think case history, y'all perhaps even agree, is not going to come in. The question is manner of death now, right? So if manner, that's what we're, I think, talking about now, because case history is not.
The manner of death should be thermal injury.
Well, that's the cause of death. So the question is manner of death, is homicide appropriate? The state wants to bring it in because hearsay is appropriate in formulating an opinion. I'm not sure. Go ahead, please.
Let me ask this. Is Ms. Matthews going to ask about manner of death?
Well, that was going to be my question, because if you open the door and say, wow, I guess you didn't come up with a manner of death, or start mentioning manner of death, I would say...
Manner of death to me is going to be she stopped breathing.
Well,
I'm not going to bring that up. I'm not going to say...
Well, it's delayed complications of thermal injury, the cause of death. I mean, manner of death is, as you said, suicide, homicide, something like that. But if you bring it up, then the door's wide open.
Door's open.
So I think, again, cause of death is fine, case history's out. Manner of death, not appropriate unless the door is open, unless it's discussed. And,
got it. So there's not going to be any question like, oh, well, shouldn't this be an accident, manner of death be an accident, or anything like that?
Y'all give me a list of what manners of death might be. That'd be suicide, homicide, accident, anything
natural
like that.
Causes.
I am not, unless I go off the rail somewhere, going to bring anything in that I feel that this expert witness is not qualified to.
Okay, but just so we're clear, getting into manner of death or the various things that could be manner of death would be a door opening situation.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. All right. Does that mean I don't have to read Smith versus Arizona?
I believe so.
Well, I'm going to hand it all back then. All right. Yeah, we'll keep it. Yeah. All right. Let's take a quick break for us then. We'll be off the record. Thanks.